watching.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump unveiling new actions to tame gas prices and boost the U.S. farming sector. What he announces and how it could help U.S. consumers. Some House Republicans are already criticizing the newly passed Senate bill to fund most of the Department of Homeland Security. The latest on that as the shutdown hits 42 days. Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying the war in Iran will not involve U.S. boots on the ground, what his message is to U.S. allies after a G7 ministers meeting. Vice President J.D. Vance holding a meeting for the anti-fraud task force, what he says the task force will do and how pervasive the fraud is. A Florida congresswoman is under fire for violating House rules. The House Ethics Committee alleges that she spent COVID disaster relief funds on a 2022 congressional campaign.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. President Trump announcing new measures to help U.S. farmers and consumers. It comes as he's touting efforts to lower gas prices and boost the nation's energy supply. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more.
Amid the war in Iran and the recent rise in gas prices, President Trump announcing a slew of new actions to help U.S. farmers and consumers. The president says in addition to recently waiving summer gasoline regulations, he's also asking Congress to now allow the sales of high ethanol gasoline all year round, that to further tame fuel prices.
And just as I promised in the campaign, I'm seeking congressional action to allow E15 all year round, okay?
As more than 800 farmers gather on the south lawn of the White House, the president also unveiling actions to cut regulations on farm equipment and increase government loan guarantees for farmers.
Farmers can now deduct 100% of the cost of new tractors and all equipment in the first year. In other words, you buy a tractor, you deduct the whole price.
He's also touting new efforts to boost renewable fuel derived from farm products.
These new standards will generate over $10 billion of rural economic benefit, create an estimated 100,000 new jobs, and massively increase our nation's energy supply.
The president says he's also asking Congress to pass a new farm bill and will request additional farm relief in the next funding bill.
And later on Friday, the president is traveling to Florida to attend a Saudi investment summit in Miami Beach. Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
House Republicans reject the Senate's bill funding most of the Department of Homeland Security just before the department's shutdown enters its 7th week. Some House Democrats express support. Early Friday morning, the Senate reached a unanimous agreement to fund DHS, excluding ICE and parts of Customs and Border Protection. Senate Majority Leader John Thune said that it has, quote, zero reforms on immigration enforcement policy. Some House Republicans have expressed disappointment with the Senate funding agreement. Representative Mark Harris says, quote, their failure to fully fund DHS is not just disappointing, it's a disgrace. They refused to fund ICE units that target sex traffickers. They refused to fund Border Patrol agents. Some Democrats have expressed support for it. Representative Jared Huffman said, quote, it sounds very familiar or similar to the discharge petition almost all of us as Democrats have already signed. The House is expected to propose a new bill funding the whole DHS for 60 days, which means the Senate will need to return to Washington to consider it after leaving on Friday for a 2-week break. U.S. military releasing a new video today showing strikes on the Iranian regime's ability to project military power beyond its borders. In one clip, a figure runs from a building just as the strike hits. U.S. Central Command says its Operation Epic Fury is on schedule or ahead of plan since the February 28th launch. More than 10,000 targets have been hit over 28 days, while 92% of large Iranian naval vessels are now destroyed. All this as President Trump says talks with Iran are going fairly well, extending a pause on strikes against oil infrastructure. He's also pushing the deadline to April 6th for Iran to allow free passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Officials say the U.S. has presented a 15-point plan, while President Trump says Iran is begging for a deal and that he's in no rush. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the U.S. operation in Iran is ahead of schedule and expected to conclude in a matter of weeks. Here he is speaking after he met with G7 foreign ministers in France.
We're going to destroy their factories that make missiles and rockets and drones. We're going to destroy their Navy. We're going to destroy their Air Force. And we are going to significantly destroy their missile launchers so they can never hide behind these things to get a nuclear weapon. We are achieving all those objectives. We are ahead of schedule on most of them. And we can achieve them without any ground troops, without any.
Secretary of State promising that this won't be a prolonged conflict. He explains President Trump's recent decision to deploy more troops to the Middle East, saying this is just to keep all options available and be able to prepare for multiple contingencies. Rubio says the Iranian regime has not responded to America's 15-point peace plan just yet, but could do so any moment. He stresses that the world will face a major challenge after the conflict concludes.
One of the immediate challenges we're going to face is an Iran that may decide that they want to set up a tolling system in the Straits of Hormuz. Not only is this illegal, it's unacceptable, it's dangerous to the world. And it's important that the world have a plan to confront it. The United States is prepared to be a part of that plan. We don't have to lead that plan, but we're happy to be a part of it.
The Secretary of State saying countries around the world that depend on oil through the Strait of Hormuz should contribute greatly to securing the waterway. He says many U.S. allies in G7 agree with this message. Rubio adds that the U.S. does not need other countries' help in the operation, but urges them to act on the Strait of Hormuz. This comes as Vice President J.D. Vance and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent met with the Prime Minister and Foreign Minister of Qatar in Washington, D.C. They discussed the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, global energy security, and freedom of maritime navigation. Meanwhile, Israel warning it will expand its attacks on Iran as Tehran keeps firing missiles at Israel and Gulf Arab nations. The regime also says the Strait of Hormuz is closed for shipping to and from ports of U.S. allies. Here's the Israeli defense minister.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I warned the Iranian terror regime to stop the missile fire directed at Israel's civilian population. Despite the warnings, the firing has continued, and therefore IDF strikes in Iran will escalate and expand to additional targets and areas that assist the regime in building and operating weapons used against Israeli civilians. They will pay heavy and increasing prices for this war crime.
The Israeli military says it completed a wide-scale wave of strikes overnight in the heart of Tehran. The military says the attacks hit facilities used to produce ballistic missiles and other weapons. It also struck missile launchers and storage sites in western Iran. And President Trump discussing the execution of a 19-year-old Iranian wrestler and why he says Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that, plus the latest from Israel.
President Trump emphasizing why he views the operations in Iran as so crucial, speaking yesterday on Fox News' The Five.
You can't let a madman or you can't let a mad ideology have a nuclear weapon.
Trump highlighting economic achievements in his current administration, citing the Dow Jones hitting 50,000, saying now a short detour is required.
We have to take a little bit of a detour. We have to take a little journey to a place called Iran where these mad people were going to have a nuclear weapon and they could do tremendous damage not only to the Middle East and Israel, but also to our country because we would be next.
Trump pointing to Iran's strikes on its Gulf neighbors, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, Kuwait, and Oman, as evidence, he says, of how unhinged the regime is.
And they would have hit it with nuclear if they had it because they're stone cold crazy.
The president also discussing operations in Venezuela, saying the U.S. now produces more oil than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined.
And we don't need the Hormuz Strait. What bothers me is that countries that don't do anything about it. We're actually doing this for other countries. We don't need it. We did 1%. We don't have to do anything. We don't need the 1%. I think we did it just because we want to be nice to them.
Trump commenting on stories claiming the CIA informed him that the new leader of Iran, Mojtaba Khamenei, is gay. The Iranian regime is known for its severe penalties against homosexuals.
Well, they did say that, but I don't know if it was only them. I think a lot of people are saying that, which puts them off to a bad start in that particular country.
The president also discussing the fear of those living in Iran.
If you noticed, about 2 weeks ago, they put out a notice that if you protest, we will shoot you. They killed him. Look what they did to the wrestler. They killed him for speaking up. They killed him. He was a star wrestler, great wrestler.
19-year-old star wrestler Saleh Mohammadi was reportedly killed in a public hanging earlier this month. He dreamed of being an Olympic champion. Multiple Olympians expressed outrage over his execution, including gold medalists Brandon Slay and Kelly Humphreys. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The White House task force on eliminating fraud is meeting today. Here's Vice President J.D. Vance on what the task force will do.
First of all, we're going to turn back on those anti-fraud protections so that all of these cabinet officials are looking at what's going on and focusing on it. The second thing is that we're going to take a whole-of-government approach. So much of what's going to make the anti-fraud task force work is that we're communicating across different departments.
I think that most citizens probably assume that there's some verification process that takes place for the receipt of most federal benefits. The reality is that there is not. This is particularly true in blue states, willfully true in blue states, in which all of these programs are operated entirely on the honor system. No verification takes place before individuals are enrolled in or receive these benefits.
Members of the task force saying some states don't verify the eligibility of welfare recipients and simply send a bill to the federal government. The federal government does not know the recipients of the benefits programs, despite repeated efforts reaching out to the states. They say every tax dollar diverted to fraud deprives an American citizen who needs these essential services. The task force singles out Minnesota specifically, saying many undetected fraud cases can only exist in a system that ignores it. Members of the task force have promised to eliminate fraud in federal benefits programs and restore public trust in such programs.
A Florida congresswoman is under fire for violating House rules. The House Ethics Committee found that the Democratic representative had committed 25 ethics violations. Here's more.
Representative Sheila Sherfilis McCormick is accused of spending COVID disaster relief funds on her 2022 congressional campaign. The Ethics Committee alleges that she used a $5 million overpayment to her family's health care company for COVID vaccination services. The Florida Democrat also faces federal charges. Her brother and former chief of staff and accountant have also been charged. Sherfilis McCormick has denied wrongdoing and has pleaded not guilty. The panel said it would recommend a punishment in the coming weeks.
Soon, House Speaker Mike Johnson is going to speak to the press after House Republicans rejected a Senate funding bill for Homeland Security, with the shutdown now entering its 7th week. Stay with us after this break.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor and help save even more lives. Thank you.
House Speaker Mike Johnson is speaking to the press right now after House Republicans rejected a Senate funding bill for Homeland Security. With the shutdown now in its 7th week, let's take a listen.
Democrats fundamentally disagree. The Senate Democrats have hoisted upon this appropriations process their radical, crazy agenda. We call it crazy because that's what it is. They want to reopen the borders, and they want to stop the deportation of dangerous criminal illegal aliens. We have to do these basic functions of government. We have to fund them in order to do them. In the last several days, we have recent examples of dangerous criminals in this country killing innocent Americans. We had an 18-year-old college student in Chicago, a young lady who was shot in the back by a dangerous criminal who had been released in that sanctuary city and first released at the border under Joe Biden. They opened the border wide for 4 years. Just yesterday, or in the last 36 hours or so, an 83-year-old man's pushed onto the subway tracks and run over by a dangerous criminal illegal alien. This has to stop. The Republicans are not going to be a party to this. They have taken hostage the funding processes of government so that they can impose their radical agenda on the American people, and we can't have any part of it. This gambit that was done last night is a joke. I'm quite convinced that it can't be that every Senate Republican read the language of this bill, and I'm going to just read you one excerpt of it because it's pretty alarming, and it says everything that you need to know in Section 4. This is on page 2 of the bill. This is an actual copy of the bill. That excerpt. It says, quote, "The contents printed under the headings of this bill, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Border Security Operations, under the heading of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol and Protection, shall have no force or effect for purposes of this Act, and amounts specified in the final bill under the subheading Border Security Operations and under the heading U.S. Customs and Border Protection and under the headings of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the Department of Homeland Security shall be zero." We're not doing that. And it is unconscionable to me that the Democrats would force some sort of negotiation at 3 o'clock in the morning and try to hoist this upon the American people and then get on their jets and go home for their holiday and pretend and think that we're going to go along with that. So we're going to do something different. We're going to do the responsible thing. Republicans are going to continue to govern and do the right thing morally, legally, and politically. We are going to take care of those who take care of us. The employees in the Department of Homeland Security have gone without funding and without paychecks for 42 days. It's the second longest shutdown in U.S. history, bested only by the longest shutdown in U.S. history that these same radical Democrats hoisted upon the government in the fall of last year. 42 days they've gone without pay. We've had, by some estimates, close to 500 TSA agents who have resigned from their jobs, and who could blame them? They've gone half the fiscal year without a regular paycheck. We can't ask that of anyone. And the lines around the airlines and at the airports have been wrapped around the buildings because of all this turmoil. We are very grateful to have a strong commander-in-chief in the White House who has taken real leadership. President Trump has already ordered by executive order that TSA agents will be paid, and that machinery is in process right now. The Office of Management and Budget is working through that to make sure that that happens, and we will reduce the lines and the waits at the airlines, and we'll make sure that those who are protecting us are paid. But what we are going to present and what we're going to vote on this floor, our Rules Committee is working through this right now. We're going to put a clean, simple, continuing resolution that will go until May 22nd. It's just a number of weeks to allow for all those who sacrificially serve the country and protect other Americans, all these agencies, 10 agencies under the Department of Homeland Security, will continue at their current funding levels to make sure that they are protected. We're going to send that over to the Senate, and we hope that they'll accept that. They can do it in record time just like that with the unanimous consent. They could do that as early as Monday. In the meantime, TSA will be paid. We will have done our jobs, and we will protect the homeland, because that is the most basic responsibility of the Congress, is to protect the American people. We're not playing political games on this. We encourage some of our Democrats, hopefully we'll have some of our Democrats in the House who go along with this and stop the pain that's being forced upon these people. The reason that we can't accept this ridiculousness, okay, is because we're not going to risk not funding the agencies that keep the American people safe. The Department of Homeland Security is the third largest department in the federal government. It has 10 agencies beneath it. It's not just TSA, it's also FEMA, the Coast Guard, all these agencies that keep us safe. We must fund them. This is not a game. Republicans will do the responsible and honorable thing, and Democrats will continue to play politics.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You and John Thune are not on the same page. You came out and criticized Democrats. He was the engineer behind this. Why are you guys not on the same page? And are you not extending the shutdown? If you were to accept what the Senate had passed, this could end tonight and the TSA lines would shrink.
I wouldn't call John Thune the engineer of this. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate have forced this upon the Senate. I have to protect the House. Let me answer the question, Chad. I have to protect the House, and I have to protect the American people. That's our responsibility. Our colleagues on this side understand this is not a game. We are not playing their games. These people want open borders, and they want criminal illegal aliens in the country. They do not want to enforce the law. They want to literally defund. You just read it in the bill here. They want to give $0 to enforcing federal immigration laws and keeping the border secure. That was the biggest issue in the election of 2024, the wide open border that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris hoisted upon the country. And 20 million, by some estimates, 20 million dangerous criminal illegal aliens included in that number came over the border. We have terrorists in our country. We have obviously murderers. They're putting it on display. And then these big blue cities that have sanctuary city policies, they're releasing these people onto the streets. They released them over the border when they came over under the Biden years. And that is the turmoil that we're facing right now, the very serious threats to the homeland and everybody. It's not just long lines at the airport. It is the danger and safety of everyone. We'll talk more after this is passed. We'll get it done.
Has the president endorsed this plan? Has the president endorsed this plan, Mr. Speaker? Has the president?
I spoke to the president a few moments ago. He understands exactly what we're doing and why, and he supports it. Yes.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
The American people are just sick and tired of every one of you, both Republicans and Democrats, come to this podium and blame the other side. People have been standing in lines 3, 4, 5 hours at a time. There's TSA workers that are selling their plasma. At what point is a leader on either side going to stand up and say, we have a path forward that everyone will agree to? This vote today will extend the shutdown under any circumstance.
No, it won't. No, it won't. Thank you. Let me answer the question. I'm glad you brought it up. The House Republicans have now voted that today will be the 4th time to fund the Homeland Security. This is not party blame game. This is a record. You can hold up the record. Look at the Democrats. They're voting over and over. Yesterday afternoon, we gave them a chance to fund Homeland Security. You know how many House Democrats voted yes? 4 of them. They want to use people as pawns. People are not pawns. These are workers who are sacrificially serving the country, many of them without pay, to make sure that you and your families are safe. And we're done with it. This is not a political blame game. This is one party doing the job and getting the government funded and another that's using people as pawns. We're not going to do that. Listen, we're going to send it over there, and you can see what they do. If this is not USEED and they don't do it, the president has shown leadership. He's going to fund TSA agents. We'll get that covered. But we have the rest of the country to take care of. We're not asking them to do anything heroic. These aren't partisan games. We're not adding bells and whistles to this. It is a clean continuation of funding to make sure that the most basic responsibility of government is fulfilled. And we'll see how that goes and see what happens.
Thank you.
As soon as possible.
And that was House Speaker Mike Johnson rejecting the DHS funding bill from the Senate, saying that and highlighting one of the lines in that bill that $0 are going to enforce federal immigration laws, and Johnson saying that Democrats are holding the country, the American people, hostage, and the Republican Party is going to do the right thing and not be a part of that. Okay, moving on. To talk to us about what the Iran war looks like inside Israel on the ground, joining us now is Tammuz Itai, geopolitical columnist and former Israeli Air Force. So Tammuz, thank you so much for joining us as always. You're in Israel right now, and it appears you are sheltering. So describe for us what is happening in Israel right now. What does daily life look like?
Thank you for having me. Right now, I'm in my bomb shelter, which is in my home. A sizable number of people in Israel have that. I don't know, maybe 20, 30%, but maybe 30, 40% of people don't have bomb shelters in their homes, so they need to rush to the community bomb shelters. Some people, whether they are elderly or with young children, they can't always do that. Today, I was in a shopping mall, and we had maybe 3, 4 incoming missiles that we had to shelter in place. And I was in a shopping mall, and in the shopping mall, the bomb shelter is like the bottom floor of the parking garage. And I was shocked to see a tent city of people and families who just go there every night to sleep there because they can't rush with their kids or their elderly to the bomb shelter. So they've been, the past month, they've been living half their lives in the parking garage. And these are normal people with apartments or homes. So in that sense, it's been challenging. It's been a month. But at the same time, people are trying to keep on living. So right when it was all clear and we could go out, people flood back into the streets. They buy coffee, they try to eat out, they try to live as normal as they can. So it's a kind of strange existence.
Okay, let me just follow up on a number of things one at a time here. Are sirens heard more often now? Are Iranian missile attacks more often or less often? Have they decreased?
Well, the first week was pretty intense, and then they kind of started decreasing. But in recent week, they started increasing again. And yesterday was the day with the most sirens since the first day. We had to go to the bomb shelters like 10 or 11 times. So I would say it's variable. If we want to go into the intelligence and the reasons why it's happening this way, we can go there. But it seemed like they were decreasing, and now maybe it's increasing again.
So why is that the case? Because we're hearing from the U.S. side that the U.S. military has taken out 90%. Sometimes officials are saying even more than 90% of Iran's missile capability or manufacturing capability. So what's happening?
Well, I think it's a numbers game, right? So if you had 2,000 missiles and you took out 90%, you still have 200. And if you send 4 or 5 a day, it gives you many, many days you can harass the Israeli home front and the Gulf states home front. And I think that's the game they're playing. They probably have a lot less missiles and a lot less missile launchers, because that's actually the limiting factor, not the missiles themselves. But if they just send a few every day, it's still an emergency on the home front in all the relevant countries, including Israel. So there is no contradiction. I think that's basically it seems like the Iranian regime wants the Israeli citizens to grow tired of the war and put pressure on the Israeli government.
Okay, so you talked about how there was an underground shelter under a shopping facility. Are food and medical care, basic supplies, are they easily accessible right now? Are businesses operating as normal?
Well, I mean, so far there is no problem with medical supplies and food. The supermarkets are open, the pharmacies are open. Businesses, it kind of depends. Some are open, some are not open. To operate a business, you need to have a bomb shelter nearby that all the people who work in the business can go in there. And you can't have more than 50 people in the same space. So some businesses are open. I mean, if you want to buy a burger, you can go to McDonald's. But if you want to go to a restaurant, many of them are closed because nobody wants to reserve a table at a restaurant and may have to not finish dinner because there is a siren. So some businesses are open, some businesses are closed. The whole north of Israel, which is also suffering rockets and missiles from Hezbollah, basically, I think anything but essential services is closed because they're constantly under fire.
So how's the cost of living then? How does that look like right now?
I don't think prices have increased dramatically. I think the problem is that if you have a business and it's not working, then you don't have money, not because the cost of living has risen, but because you have no income. And if people had to evacuate their home and live somewhere else, they're living at relatives, and it's more challenging. I actually have relatives at home who came to live with me because I have a bomb shelter in my home. And many families kind of aggregate at the relatives who have bomb shelters in their homes.
Yeah, it's a bit heartbreaking that people have to live like this. But how are they doing emotionally? How are people coping with this?
Well, Israel is a country that has been through maybe not this, but varieties of wars like that for many, many years. So on the one hand, people are used to it. On the other hand, it's been a month. And also, actually, the ceasefire with the Gaza war was only September, which is like 4 or 5 months ago. And that war was since 2023. And so it's been like several years of fighting. And actually, one of the biggest challenges is that the Israeli military, a lot of its strength is based on reserve service. Reserve service means that you already have a job or you're a student and you have a family. And many people who are combatants the past 3 years already have had to do like 100 days a year or 200 days a year of reserve service. And aside from the danger of them not coming back or coming back with no legs or no arms or something like that, which has happened a lot, they just don't see their families. And if they work, they don't work. And if they have their own business, then basically their families have a problem in terms of making a living. So the past several years have been challenging.
Yeah, I mean, this is the reality of war. How does the Israeli public view this war, this one specifically, with Israel's involvement against Iran?
Well, I would say it's twofold, because most Israelis know that behind most of the security challenges Israel has faced in the past 20-something years at least, the Iranian regime has been behind that. And if there is a chance to reduce, maybe not neutralize, but significantly reduce the threat directly from Iran, but also from its proxies that depend on it, whether it's Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, or any other terrorist groups, then Israelis are willing to tolerate severe inconvenience. At the same time, it's been a while, and after the attacks in the summer, the war in the summer, many Israelis hoped that Iran was pushed back years or decades, and now we have a war again. So there is some sort of fatigue, but I think the approach of many Israelis will kind of be determined by the end state, and we are not there yet. If the end state seems favorable to better living conditions for at least several years, then I think many Israelis will feel that it might have been worth it. But if it seems like that's not where it's going, or maybe even worse, that it's a never-ending war, then Israelis will have a very different approach. And we're just not there yet. We don't know where this is going.
Okay, speaking of the end state, let me just ask you one last question here. How do you feel about the latest negotiations, whether you want to call it a ceasefire deal or a peace deal between the U.S. and Iran? How do you feel about that, led by President Trump?
Well, first, I want to qualify everything I say, because in these kinds of situations, everybody lies and uses psychological warfare. And we don't really know what's happening either from the American side or the Israeli side. I think, generally speaking, like we said before, even if the Iranian capabilities are decimated to a very great degree, they still, even like 10% or 5% is enough to cause trouble or to threaten tankers going through the Strait of Hormuz. And so it's better to have some sort of deal with somebody who can enforce that deal on the Iranian side. And I think one of the questions, I guess, the American administration is trying to find out through these negotiations with some Iranian strongmen or political figures is whether these people actually want to deliver or they're just buying time. And if they want to deliver, can they deliver? Or actually is there all sorts of factions inside Iran that, some will sign a deal and some will not. And we kind of, because a lot of the leaders, Trump said like the first set, the second set, the third set have been killed. It's not that easy for them to communicate. And I think the Iranians have planned for such contingencies. So their command and control structure has a lot of redundancies built into it, which means that local commanders, if they can't reach their bosses or headquarters, they have their orders what to do and they can operate semi-independently, which makes it a lot harder for the US or Israel to defeat them unless somebody is able to force his will on all these different factions. And, some of the things that we know have happened, whether it's the initial closing of the Straits of Hormuz or other things, may have actually been done by local commanders, and then the headquarters had to take ownership of that, even though they didn't necessarily intend to do it. So going back to your original question, I think if the United States discovers they have serious people who are credible and can enforce their will, and some sort of deal can be made that will stop the war and not allow the Iranian regime to rearm, I think everybody will be happy. I think because Israel is the junior partner in this campaign, they will have to acquiesce to whatever the US decides, even though Israel has gained a lot of credibility through this campaign, both because of its effectiveness as a military partner and also because of its support. So I'm sure the administration will try to accommodate what's important for Israel. But I will say that there are concerns in Israel about whether that deal will be favorable to what Israel needs or not. The other thing we can see is that Israel is actually intensifying its attacks on permissible targets in Iran. One assumes because they fear that there may be a deal before they finish bombing all the targets they wish to. So they're kind of squeezing more targets to get more done before a ceasefire is agreed upon.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts here. It's a very complex situation. But I guess the only real answer we'll get is just by waiting and see what happens in time. Tammuz, I wish you to stay safe. We can't imagine here in the United States what the Israeli people are going through right now. But really, really appreciate you speaking with us today, Tammuz. Thank you.
Thank you.
A New Jersey man has been arrested for allegedly planning to firebomb the home of a prominent Palestinian activist in New York City. Federal authorities say they arrested the individual as he was making a Molotov cocktail. The suspect has been identified as Andrew Heifler. Officials say he had allegedly been targeting the home of Brooklyn-based activist Nardine Kizwani. A New York Police Department spokesperson said Heifler had discussed the plot with an undercover officer. Law enforcement then executed a search warrant at his residence and recovered 8 Molotov cocktails. Kizwani said she was shocked when she learned of the plot, but that she would continue advocating for Palestinians. 2 Chinese companies and 6 Chinese nationals have been indicted in a fentanyl crackdown, and the U.S. bans foreign-made internet routers over security concerns. More news after this break. Don't go away.
They tried to silence us. But 5,000 years cannot be erased.
A lost world reborn. Timeless, Witness the revival. Experience the extraordinary. Live on Stage returns to David Koch Theater, March 25th through April 12th. Get your tickets now at shenyun.com.
For the first time ever, we're bringing you MyPillow mattresses and mattress toppers for as low as $99.98. Remember, sleep's all about temperature and pressure points. Whatever sleep needs you have, we have the right technology for you. Like our MyPillow mattress topper, our queen size has over 10,000 individual comfort supports to help relieve your pressure points. And how about our 3-inch Hybrid Plus mattress topper? It's infused with copper and silver to help your body get the restorative sleep it needs. And our MyPillow and Case Coil mattresses, I personally helped develop these mattresses to make sure they have everything needed to give us great sleep. Plus, they're made right here in the USA, and they ship right to your front door absolutely free. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use this promo code to get MyPillow mattresses and toppers for as low as $99.98 and free shipping.
Whispered across generations, a hidden secret unveils the essence of longevity and vitality, a timeless legend regarding energy and wonder. Rooted in ancient health wisdom, we proudly introduce Pure Tang Black Ginseng, a 100% natural organic energy drink made from premium 6-year-old Korean ginseng. It takes 2,260 days and nights from seed to growth, undergoing a meticulous 9-step process of steaming and drying. Black ginseng reaches its full potency, enriched with ginsenoside RG3 and enhanced absorption efficiency. No sugar, no caffeine, no artificial ingredients. Experience the pure natural power of Pure Tang Black Ginseng. Nourish your body, strengthen your immunity, and boost your energy. To order Pure Tang Black Ginseng, please visit puretang.com.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiong Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
Two universities with links to China's military bought supermicro servers with restricted NVIDIA chips. Meanwhile, 2 Chinese companies and 6 Chinese nationals have been indicted in a fentanyl crackdown, and the U.S. banning foreign-made internet routers over security concerns. Joining us now to talk about these issues is Steve Yates, Senior Research Fellow for China and National Security at the Heritage Foundation. Steve, good afternoon. So good to have you here today. Now, 4 Chinese universities, including 2 linked to the People's Liberation Army, this is China's military, it bought computer servers with restricted AI chips in them. So, Steve, to start off here with the basics, what is the concern here that when China gets these restricted NVIDIA chips, what is it going to do?
Well, this is a super important topic, and it's one that a lot of us as laymen, not really experts in the technology, it's hard sometimes to understand why it matters so much. But I think we're in a very important strategic race for the future. It involves space, it involves AI, and these advanced chips are at the heart of all of this. If we just look at the weapon systems that were used very effectively to protect civilians in the broader Middle East in this current conflict, a lot of that has to do with space technology, and AI getting applied to defense technology, and having the cutting edge on that is the difference between life and death, victory and defeat. And so these chips are basically what has been keeping the United States ahead of China in this race. China has some advantages in this competition, but American innovation and manufacturing together with TSMC's manufacturing and engineering are basically what has been keeping us at the forefront.
So then how do we stop China from getting these chips? I mean, we have export controls, but it appears China is still getting these chips.
Well, there's always the problem of espionage, and whether it's industrial espionage or classical espionage. And we have to be wiser and smarter about how to increase our guardrails against that. We do have some export controls, but there's been some fuzziness about export controls, and it's still a controversial subject in some quarters of Silicon Valley more broadly, and the intersection with Washington. So there's been debate about what level of NVIDIA chips are okay to sell to China. There's still, I think, a sensitivity, even with legacy chips going out. Hard to control, but a lot of advanced systems have a lot of legacy chips involved in them, and it's very important not to have that supply completely consumed or controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. And so the advanced chip edge, vital, vital, vital. And we have to have allies in the White House and on the Hill that are setting standards that help protect that edge.
So, I mean, one way I think I've heard, at least, that China is getting these chips is through middle countries or third countries where, you know, those countries buy these restricted chips and then export them to China. It just seems to me there are a lot of gaps, if you will, that China could be potentially getting these chips. I mean, how do we even approach this?
Well, you're correct about the sort of third party or third point of contact kind of loophole. There are technological ways to guard against that. And just as there are penalties for Americans who disclose or leak these kinds of things, there are ways of sanctioning and penalizing third parties who are responsible for doing that too. And if we're serious about it, we have to follow through on that. This is very much a Cold War mentality. Some people in the current era are averse to thinking in these terms and acting in these terms, and some of our allies and high-tech partners are not ready for that. But I think that when it comes to Japan, Taiwan, and some other geographies that are very, very important to this AI and chip race, they are understanding of the need to have clean supply chains and to protect the engineering and the hardware that is related to keeping this edge. So we just have to have clean networks. We have to have high standards and accountability among our partners, and we're going to have to enforce when there's leakages.
Okay, Steve, we do have a couple of topics to get through today. I'll just ask you one more question on this chips issue. We've had a guest here on the show who made this argument. I'm very much curious as to what you say to this. And this person said, NVIDIA needs a market to sell its chips into so that it has the money for R&D to develop much more advanced chips for the U.S. And restricting that market could potentially actually slow down U.S. development. What do you say to this?
Well, I just flatly say too bad. You're going to have to make your business dependent on a supply chain that is safe for American national security interests, our allies' national security interests. And if that requires a time of transition, then begin that transition. This is not a challenge that has snuck up on NVIDIA or anyone else. This has been hotly debated and analyzed for the better part of the last decade. And I am just not open to, and I don't think any serious American national security expert or top elected official can have sympathy for those who say, I need to sell to the power that is most likely to steal my technology and hurt my country. And so we have to be very, very clear about that. That's the starting point in understanding the environment we operate in. And we don't really have a choice. That's the environment China itself is creating. And so we have to accept that reality and begin to adapt. It is doable. And I have a lot of support for the government and others trying to aid in that transition, but it has to move in the direction of security.
Okay, well said, Steve. So another issue, 6 Chinese citizens and 2 China-based pharmaceutical companies being charged with selling and delivering chemical agents to manufacture fentanyl. So what is the significance here? Because China reportedly cooperated in this investigation.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. As many of you in your audience know, I have a daughter who was killed by fentanyl, so I feel this topic very, very viscerally on a personal level. But I also have worked on this for the better part of the last decade as a policy matter. I think this is a sign of some progress in the U.S. government leaning into this subject matter and trying to press for greater cooperation from China. I would say that these limited cases are literally the least the Chinese government can do to demonstrate cooperation. The scale of this problem is such that at least 500,000 Americans have been killed by this scourge, and the CCP-related entities are tied to the manufacture, export, and laundering of money tied to it. So I would congratulate those working hard for progress. This is a step in the right direction. This is not an indication of a good faith down payment on the part of the Chinese Communist Party to actually stop this flow. Much more needs to be done, and Sarah Carter of the Office of National Drug Control Policy has made that very, very clear. I strongly support her efforts.
I just want to extend my condolences to your daughter. This is the first time I'm hearing about this, so I'm very sorry to hear about that, Steve.
Thank you.
But, you know, China's cooperation here, I can't help but wonder, because I've been covering China for a number of years. I've seen its track record. I just have to question this, and I'll have you respond. Is it just for show, or is it of meaningful consequence?
Well, I think that it's meaningful in the following limited sense. The Chinese Communist Party knows how to do the pageantry of summits. They know how to have some give and take with American and other counterparts to try to set those things up. They know that President Trump has made a priority on fentanyl because he did impose a 20% tariff that was reduced to 10. The Supreme Court has complicated that at this point, but President Trump has made clear this topic matters to him, but he's open to cooperation if it's serious and nets real results. So now we're sort of at the place where the rubber has to meet the road. We have to have clear evidence that the supply chains are getting clean of Chinese inputs on the illicit chemical precursors. That's the standard. There may have been some progress, but it's incremental. Yes, there has to be prosecutions, but frankly, China could very publicly shut down and prosecute offending manufacturers inside China if it wanted to do a good faith demonstration of progress.
Okay, we'll see what happens when President Trump meets with the Chinese regime leader Xi Jinping. Okay, just one last issue here. The FCC said it was banning the import of all new foreign-made consumer routers. And with that being said, China is estimated to control at least 60% of the U.S. market in this front. What are your thoughts on this latest move by the FCC?
Well, number one, I just couldn't be more enthusiastically in support of the leadership of Commissioner Carr, the Chairman Carr. I think he has had a very clear mind about the national security threat in our communications space. This has been a critical vulnerability for a very, very long time. And there have been instances now with evidence with Volt and Salt Typhoon that this is a critical vulnerability that makes our critical infrastructure and maybe some other systems at risk. So this matters for our government and defense systems, but also for our household and consumer systems. And so I applaud the move. This is necessary. It might be costly in some ways and enforcing some changes in equipment for a lot of people, but this is really a step in the right direction.
Okay, Steve, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Let's just leave it there for today. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
A pleasure. Thank you so much.
The Treasury announcing a historic change to American currency, saying President Trump's signature will appear on future U.S. paper money. The department saying the move honors the nation's 250th anniversary. Here's more.
It marks the first time a sitting president's signature will appear on U.S. bills alongside the Treasury Secretary. Treasury officials say the change is meant to recognize what they call the country's economic strength and leadership during this period. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent pointed to what he described as unprecedented economic growth and long-term fiscal stability. Bessent adding that the president's mark on history as the architect of America's golden age economic revival is undeniable. He called the move well-deserved. The first $100 bills with Trump's signature will be printed in June, followed by other bills in subsequent months.
The United States is celebrating 250 years of American independence. To mark the occasion, limited edition coins were given away this week at the historic home of America's first president, George Washington. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
Mount Vernon, Virginia. This week, visitors at George Washington's estate had the opportunity to view and take home newly minted Revolutionary War quarters. A reenactor playing the first president unveiling the new quarters, saying they would circulate among millions of Americans.
And when they do, I hope fervently that they remember not myself, but those soldiers who sacrificed, an entire generation who fought and sacrificed for the freedoms that you now enjoy.
Historian and Mount Vernon president and CEO Doug Bradburn says Washington was uncomfortable having his name or likeness on U.S. coins, but that didn't stop his supporters.
And yet in his own lifetime, Americans couldn't help but put his name on currency to honor Washington. His leadership, his character, and above all, his willingness to give up power made him a figure of extraordinary admiration.
Mount Vernon recently acquired an unofficial gold pattern coin made in 1792. Staff say the unique artifact was a sample coin made by engraver Jacob Perkins. They say the Massachusetts resident hoped to gain a government contract to make more coinage.
During his lifetime, unofficial coins bearing his likeness circulated in the new nation, often produced by private makers, by banks overseas, who recognized and deeply admired he had become, despite his own discomfort with such displays. Over time, that admiration found its way into our own coinage.
The first time Washington appeared on an official U.S. coin was on 1932 quarters, 200 years after he was born. 5 new quarter designs will be in circulation in 2026.
It is more than metal, it's a tribute to the revolutionaries who dared to imagine a different future, to the generations who built upon that vision, and enduring promises of liberty that continues to guide us today.
The coins depict pilgrims and the Mayflower ship, as well as other U.S. presidents like Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and Abraham Lincoln. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
President Trump signing an executive order to pay TSA agents, and the House planning to pass a new DHS funding bill. The latest on the DHS shutdown, now approaching its 7th week. More news after this break. Stay tuned.
Are you sitting at home living in pain? Maybe it's in your hands, maybe your back or your hips. The good news is you don't need to live in pain. Why? Because there is Omega XL, a one-of-a-kind, natural, powerful joint relief supplement created from the green lip mussels of New Zealand. Drug-free, non-habit forming. It's small, easy to swallow, and it's backed by more than 40 years of clinical research. If you're experiencing daily aches and pains due to aging and overuse, try Omega XL. Just ask anybody who uses it. The results are undeniable.
I had a lot of joint pain, and that slowed me down.
I had considerable pain in my back.
Really felt the pain. I mean, in my ankles and in my heels.
I'm telling you about something that's gonna change your life. It has revived me.
This works.
I'm not a prisoner anymore to my pain.
As I was getting older, my joints started to feel that wear and tear. But then I tried Omega XL, and it changed my life. Today I'm here at my ranch exercising some of my polo ponies. So as you get older, it gets tougher. I was starting to suffer some of that business, and then I ran into somebody who said, look, you should try Omega XL. And look what it's done. I feel better than I felt in the last 30 years. And Omega XL gave me the ability to get back in the saddle. It works great. If you're in pain, I want you to know that there is real hope out there. I'm living proof. See the difference it can make in your life, just like it did in mine.
Call now or order online to receive our special TV offer. Buy 1 bottle of Omega XL and get a second free. Plus, we'll also include a free bottle of Vitamin XL D3. 2 free bottles for the price of 1 bottle of Omega XL. A total value of $115. You pay only $49.95 and it ships free. Plus, you get a money-back guarantee. Buy 1, get 2 free. Call or go online right now.
Introducing the QuestWise Soothing Herbal Eye Patches. It comes with 30 pairs and can be used to help combat tired and strained eyes. The natural herbal formula provides a cooling, minty, and refreshing effect that stimulates natural tears and awakens your tired eyes. Placing the eye patches around your eyes helps to reduce dryness and massages acupuncture points. They can be worn while reading, studying, using electronics and provide hours of long-lasting relief.
Elmo's daddy taught him that when he has a big feeling like being frustrated, humming a song can help you feel better. Love your mind.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump, with a flurry of new measures aimed at helping U.S. farmers and consumers.